familiar with the foster care services available in Trinidad, perhaps you're hearing about this for the very first time. How can we go about securing the future, the present and the future of children across Trinidad and Tobago? It's quite appropriate to have members of the Children's Authority here with us in the studio. So I'm happy to have with me this morning Anjali Tiwari, team leader, foster care, and I have Nicole Assam, Child Associate Services. Yes? Thank you both for coming in. So, foster care services in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's just start because I'm sure people might think there's a similarity, foster care and adoption. So there's a big difference.
Big difference.
So you being team lead, you take the lead, Angela.
No problem. So I'm glad you started with that because a lot of people in Trinidad mix them up all the time. So even though foster care has been around for quite some time, since 1995 actually, as a very small pilot project, foster care and adoption, very different. Foster care is temporary, adoption is permanent. So whilst with adoption, you can actually permanently care for that child takes on the name of the adult. In foster care, it's a temporary option. So if it is a child that is in need of care and protection, we actually place a child with a temporary family while we work with that family to get back on their feet in order to reintegrate that child back with the family. So that's the intention of foster care, to be able to help that child stay with their family, but we just need some time to do that, so the child needs to be in a safe, loving home.
How long has this service been available in Trinidad?
So like I said, 1995, very small project, but since the Children's Authority has been operational for the past 4 years, we've taken over the management of the foster care system.
Give us some of the reasons why children will be in a foster care system.
Right, so many reasons, a variety of reasons. It could be because the child is abandoned, neglected, the child may have experienced abuse of some type, but it's always because the child needs to be removed from the environment where they are. Sometimes it could be children are abandoned in the hospitals, so we need to find a safe place for them whilst we continue to look for relatives, fit persons to care for them, because obviously every child deserves to be in a safe, loving home.
What is that like, though, Nicole, securing a foster parents, a foster home for children?
Well, there's a process involved. So once you've gone through the process and you've been approved as a foster parent, we then look to match you and what you have indicated to us during the application process in terms of the age of the child, gender of the child, and we look to then match the children who come to our attention who are recommended for foster care, and when we match those, and then we actually do the placement.
How do you get the recommendations?
For the recommendations for placement into foster care? Well, most of the children who come to the authority's attention, they go through an assessment process. It's a multidisciplinary assessment where there's a psychologist, there's a medical doctor, social workers. So we're looking at the child's entire picture. Coming out of that, we have a document which then makes recommendations for the child's short-term and long-term care, and included in that would be placement recommendations. So it's coming out of that, this child may be best suited in a foster care environment, and then Angela gets basically the request. And then once we do have someone available, we would look to do that matching and placement.
So we look at our list and then we can determine what's the best home for this child to come. For example, we get a lot of emergency requests as well. So sometimes we have emergency foster carers. If they get a call 8 o'clock in the night, they found a child who's in danger and they need somewhere safe for this child to be, I have my list of foster parents who have indicated that I'd like to be on emergency standby, and I could call them and they're able to assist.
Interesting. So how do you get on that list?
So you just give us a call. You know, we're using this big campaign right now, like programs like yourself on TV and newspaper, to really appeal to people's hearts. You know, if it is that you're willing and able, you have a space in the home, your children have all moved on, you want to invite and care for a child in your home, contact us, have a chat with us, go through the process. First you fill in an application form. We then have you come in to do a sensitization so you know what it's really about. We want people to really manage their expectations, understand what it's about. We then have you, we would do an in-depth interview with you, all the members of your household, assess the home to make sure it's safe, because most of all we want to make sure we're removing a child from danger and placing them in a place that's safe.
That's safe,
yeah?
Yeah.
We would then do any psychological assessments to make sure there's no potential for abuse, reference checks, background checks, and we would end it with some basic training so that everybody has at least some understanding of how to care for a child. Because people who come to us, they come from all different backgrounds. We want to make sure that even if you've never cared for a child, you still have those basic skills to care for a child. And once all of those are complete, no red flags, we're able to approve you and add you to our list.
Is there any specific age group, or this goes across the board?
across the board. So I think 21 is our
Minimum.
and we have 70-something-year-old foster parents.
Once you're healthy and
You're
able,
healthy and able to care for a child. I think
so
that's
one of our assessment processes is actually doing medical on you, because we need to make sure that if we placed a very energetic child in your care, you're able to keep up with them.
And what about children with special needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And we really want to appeal to the public. You know, we have a lot of difficulty placing teenagers in particular, as well as children with special needs, because everybody wants babies. Everybody comes to us and says, you know, I want a little one, 0 to 3. But we have so many requests for children, teenagers, children over the age of 10. And it's really difficult finding people willing to take in kids or even children with additional needs. So we want to appeal to the public to think about it, and maybe you can actually be that person to change a child's life.
Why do you suppose that some people are not very comfortable taking in teenagers?
I think they assume that teenagers are coming with baggage, and which they probably are, but teens will be teens. And if you really think about it, if we catch a teenager and provide them with that safety and security, it could really change their lives. It could make a difference and change the course of their future. So I've said it before, the state the nation is in today could change if we just make a difference for those teenagers in particular. They need that love, they need that security. They've probably never had it before, and we could actually provide that for them.
So let's just say that you're successful in reaching out to a family, and they say, okay, fine, we're okay with this, and you have a teenager there.
Mm-hmm.
What happens at that particular moment when you have a handing over, do you?
So my team, we would place the child. We would actually give you as much background as we know. We would actually give you the support as well to care for this child. So we're not just dropping a child off, leaving. Yeah. So we're holding your hand through the process. So after we would have provided you with training, information on the background of the child, we are still there. At the end of the phone, we do home visits, school visits. We help with any sort of issues you may have with regards to registering them into schools, getting therapy for them if they require, any sort of hiccups along the way. We're there to provide help.
Yeah, even as practical as taking them to medical appointments if the foster parent is unable to do so. So
Yes,
it's really providing the support.
Depending on their background, they may not. Especially if you just mentioned a 70-year-old foster parent. Yeah, so mobility and all that you have to take into consideration.
So we have
as
some
well.
really active 70-year-olds.
Very, very, very active.
Yeah.
So it's a collaborative process. I think that's the main thing. It's not that we've just placed a child and we leave. You are literally working with the authority to make sure that that child is being well cared for.
Yeah.
All right, so how can listeners get in touch with you?
So give us a call on 627-0748. You can call that number, you can ask for the foster care unit, and you can even call extension 40988. They can go on our website, www.ttchildren.org. There's a lot of information on foster care if you want to know more, as well as you can email us on fostercare@ttchildren.org.
All right, so let's just, for the benefit of the listeners, for those online, for those who are just tuning in, Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago has dubbed September Foster Care Awareness Month, and 103.1 FM doing our part to share the information with you on foster care services in Trinidad and Tobago. What are the benefits of being a foster parent?
I think when we speak to our foster parents, they acknowledge it's not easy. You're taking a child's life into your hands, but they always say to us it's so rewarding. You see changes happening with these children. You see them blossom into who they want to be. If you think about children who've never been in school before, foster care is an opportunity to get them on that path, get them exposed to school, hobbies, and those sorts of things. So I think it's a really rewarding aspect of foster care. You can actually see a child blossom.
Can foster parents adopt later on?
So we do have, as Ms. Assam would have mentioned, we have short-term and long-term placements, but we need to establish foster care is not adoption. It's different. One does not lead to the other. There may be long-term placements, and in some cases, it may lead to long-term care, but that's case by case, and it's not a guarantee. So we really don't want people entering the foster care system as a route into adoption. If you are interested in adoption, you can contact the Children's Authority and speak to the adoption unit.
Because I'm just thinking you might get used to this person, and you might get attached, and you might be really successful, and vice versa, because the child might be really comfortable, and it might cross your mind.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's true, and that actually is one of the issues that we have seen the most with persons who have called. So after they listen to a program like this, and their heart is moved and they call us, attachment is proving to be one of the largest issues. It's a hindrance to some people going forward. It's real, it's true, and it's something that we do help our foster parents to deal with. Because I think at the end of the day, if you're coming into foster care, you have to be aware that it is a temporary placement situation. So and that's with we're asking the adults who are coming forward to sort of help to manage themselves and to know that this is, I think I like to look at it as foster care has to be something that you're looking at as something selfless. So you're giving to someone, you're giving a child an opportunity that they may not have ever had before. You're providing them with an environment that's safe, that's secure. You're helping them, you know, to maybe for the first time in their life have an actual positive home environment. But at some point in time, you've sort of done your part. And it's like it's time to just pass the baton on, whatever it might be, and get yourself ready for another child that you can do the same thing with.
Right.
And I think to remember that even though it might be for a short time, you can really make an impact.
A huge difference.
Yeah.
A really, really huge difference in a child's life.
So to not let that scare people, you know, I think as it is something that pops up all the time, we provide training to deal with that as well as any sort of counselling that is required. You know, so we do support the child as well as the foster parent in that relationship.
Well, I suppose it's helpful because on any level, foster parents, adoptive, natural, normal parenting, you do require that support at some point.
And we always say this. I mean, we take any types of individuals, single applicants, people who are couples, but even those who you're coming to us, you need to have that support network. Being a parent to a child is a big task. It's a big responsibility. And we need people to have that backing from their family, from their church, from their friends, in order to sign up for something like this.
Okay, so can you repeat the numbers because we do have a listener who's asking for the numbers.
Sure, no problem. It's 627-0748. That's the main number. And the extension for the foster care unit is 40988. Our website is www.ttchildren.org. And our email address is fostercare@ttchildren.org.
How many children do we currently have in the system?
So we only have about 48 right now. We have about 36 foster care providers, and we're really hoping to have a lot more. That's a really small number in the scheme of things, but the ones that we do have are doing a really excellent job. I mean, some of them have multiple children in their care, and they're really working hard and they're committed to the process.
I was about to ask about if you can have more than one.
Yeah. Whenever we do our
Yeah, so that's part of why we do a home assessment as well. So in addition to just ensuring that the home is safe, we're also looking at capacity. Do you have one bedroom? Do you have two bedrooms? How many children can you actually accommodate safely? So if you have the space, sure.
Because sometimes we actually have sibling groups.
We have large sibling groups, and I mean, especially if the recommendation is for that sibling group to stay in foster care and you have a sibling group of, let's say, 6. I mean, the average person doesn't have space for 6 children, but you might. You might have 2 bedrooms with bunk beds, and you might be able to. So it's subject to capacity.
And we try our best to keep siblings together where possible, but sometimes if we do need to split them, we do visits so they can see each other. And that's one thing that's important to point out. Because our whole aim is to reintegrate children where possible and appropriate and in their best interest with their birth families, they still do have visits with their birth families, but that's under the remit of the authority. So the foster parent's identity, location never gets shared with anybody else. That's only for the foster care unit and children's authority. So we would pick up children to see their parents. So that bond is still preserved. Because the aim is to return children to their families. We don't want to be breaking up families unnecessarily.
When you say that you don't share the information with regard to the foster parents, so that's kept confidential?
Kept confidential.
Unless the child shares the information? Or
So even, we've had many children placed in foster care and that's actually never happened. Because the children understand. Children, once you speak to them and they understand, it's not like they go and run to tell mommy or daddy. We explain to them that they're not to share their location, share their address. And we've had teenagers placed in foster care and they've not shared it.
And we should point out too that when we're picking them up to bring them to see their family, it's actually supervised, so it's under a supervised, controlled environment. So we actually have members of the authority in the room, physically in the room, ensuring that the content of so there's no disclosures and so forth. You're just here to see your child and spend time. There's no questions about where you're living and all of that sort of stuff. So it's in a controlled environment.
And some parents voluntarily come to us and ask for their children to be placed in foster care because they just can't manage right now. So it's not always a contentious situation. They're very grateful to the foster carer for looking after their child. Sometimes they send fruit for the foster parents. They're always very thankful that their child is being looked after adequately.
Yes, because I remember some time ago I heard about a father whose wife had died and they were very, very poor.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't take care of his daughter. And a school teacher actually shared the information with me, and he said that he had to turn to this because it's very difficult for him to be a single parent, and
Yeah.
it's a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and he did not want to take the risk of leaving her with somebody. So
Yeah.
it's actually, that's one of the benefits, you know.
Yeah.
So you get your life in order.
Yeah, it gives parents
That's
time
right.
to just kind of maybe get a job, get a better place to live, and then they can come back to us when they're ready. And it's not like it just works just like that. We wouldn't just return the child just so. We would need to make sure that what you're saying is true, the environment is safe, the child's needs can be met. Because once a child comes into foster care, we actually do need to report to the court as to how the child is being cared for.
Right. So it's not just as simple as babysitting.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in Trinidad we do foster care very informally right now, but now that the authority is managing it, we're hoping to do it in a more structured manner.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys are sharing this information, because it's quite revealing. I
Yeah.
mean, to think that we do have this service
Yes.
available in Trinidad and Tobago, but it's also important for us to understand the circumstances that would lead to this, because you still have a lot of taboo situations in the country and in the Caribbean, you
Yeah.
know, and you look at the situation and you think, oh God, bad parenting, and that's why they have to take
And
the
it's not
children.
so simple. It's
And
not
it's
so
important.
simple.
I'm glad that the entire month is dedicated to the awareness.
Yeah.
What happens though when you have a recommendation or a request that's made regarding a child, and you have to run your investigations, you have to research parents, you get in touch with foster parent? What happens to the child during that time?
So we actually have an existing pool of foster care providers who are approved. So if, say for example, I got a request this morning, which I did, I was able to call up somebody on my list who I know is available right now, and they were able to tell me that yes, they can take that child. So we're currently in the background making arrangements for that placement to happen. So we do our investigations ongoing. It's going on all the time in the background, so that when we're ready for placements, we can actually move to our list. So even though Foster Care and Adoption Month is the month of September, throughout the year we're requesting for people to contact us so we can do all of our background processes. So when we're ready, but I'm glad you brought it up, because I mean, I've told you we only have about 36 foster care providers, and that's the reason why we need more. Because when somebody contacts us to place a child and we don't have any placements, we oftentimes need to turn to the children's homes. And whilst the children's homes are doing as best as they can, really and truly a child should grow up in a family environment. That's the best environment for them to flourish. So we really want to appeal to the public to get in touch with us and express interest.
What are some of the challenges that you've faced?
With regards to recruitment or...
Recruitment and placement.
I think in particular with recruitment, like we said, nobody really wants older children with disabilities. So, it's difficult to convince people that, it's not just babies who need care. We get lots of babies, requests for to place babies, but we do also need placement for older children. Also, we do want to appeal to your listeners and the public in general. We need all different types of cultures and races to apply to us, because we like as best as possible to place children in homes that they feel culturally comfortable with. And we want a vast different type of foster care provider. So anybody who's interested, whether it's a single applicant, female, male, a couple, a grandmother, we do want everybody to really think about it, whether it's something for them.
And it's important that you mention the cultural, the boundaries that exist, because it's also a learning process for both sides. If you're a foster parent, you're on the list, and you have this request, and there's a child, and it's a learning on both sides, because if you're not familiar with that child's background, it's a way for you to tap into that, and for the child to feel comfortable, and then the child learns from your background.
It's funny because we have a child right now who's doing really well in the family. They've taken her in, she's going to school, but she keeps asking for a certain type of food, which of course a foster parent is not accustomed to making.
Right.
So it's about kind of that balance, exposing her to different types of food, but as well as trying to see what she likes and seeing if they can make it as well. So it is a big learning curve, but it's so lovely to see our foster children get to do all these new experiences. I remember we had a video of these two foster kids playing parang at Christmas, and I thought it was playing like little shacks and the families in the background singing parang, and I thought it's so nice that they're getting exposed to a different type of life, a different way in Trinidad. That was really nice to see.
Well, I wish you all the best, and kudos to the foster care providers on your list.
Definitely.
And to the potential foster care providers, those listening. And I imagine that some people may call you as well with requests. Do they call with requests regarding their children? Or how does
We
that
get,
work?
They aren't maybe that frequent, but they get directed through, because there is of course a process with the authority. So they would go through our registry unit, which, and this is just for your listeners as well, the Children's Authority does have a 24/7 hotline number, and this is to report any concerns. You might actually know of a child who might be in an abusive situation, or you might see a child, or you know of a family that you've always seen them begging, under a bridge, whatever the case might be. We really would like the public to get in the habit of being aware and becoming more aware of situations like that and bringing them to the authorities' attention. So our hotline number is 996 or 800 2014. And it's, as I say, there's always someone there. We take the reports, and then from there we investigate. So a similar situation would apply if someone actually called and said they didn't think they could care for their child and they would like to place the child in foster care. It would be an immediate. We would have to go through the process. We would investigate to ensure that there really are no other options available for that child. And then, so there's always a process.
Because we always do explore family members first. Before removing a child from a home, we do try to find family members and can care for that child before removing that child from that environment. But just to point out, the hotline number is actually 24/7, free of charge. And if it is that you call to make a report, calls are anonymous if you so request.
Wonderful. And numbers once again for the authority?
627-0748, extension 40988 will take you straight through to the foster care unit.
Wonderful. Nicola Sam, Anjali Tiwari. It was wonderful having you guys here in studio.
Thanks so
Great
much for having
information.
us.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck to the Children's Authority, and keep us posted.
Thank you.
Okay, stay tuned. So we have our news update coming up at the top of the hour. Remember, it's Foster Care Awareness Month.